So for this assignment, for this video, we're doing the Kami assignment where I introduced the guides to you guys. It's going to be in the week 18, day 36, right? This is where the Kami assignment is. Where do I add the guide, right? This was a review assignment on how to add guides, right? Hopefully you guys understand how to add guides precisely. I have two worksheets, right? The first one and the second one, they're going to be on the same Kami assignment. So I'm going to click on Open Assignment with Kami, right? It's going to ask you to log in with your Google with your LAUSD, right? Okay, and this is the first worksheet, right? And the second one, right? So I put in some things in here, right? These are both letter size pages, right? Except this one's portrait and this one's landscape, right? Meaning that this is up and down, the longer part is up and down, and the longer part over here is side to side, right? So for this first one, we're going to create a 0.75 inch margin space, right? I have it right here, okay? So once we start off at 0, right, it adds the guide right here. But if we're trying to add a 0.75 inch guide, right, to our page, right, we need to add 0, which is at the edge of the page, right, plus the margin space, right? So 0 plus 0.75 is 0.75, right? So the first one is usually always easy, right? Because you're always just adding it to 0. Okay. So the first guide, right? We're going to insert it at the 0.75 inch margin space, right? And it should land somewhere over here, closer to the 1, right? It's almost at the 1, so it should give us a guide right here, right? So to find out what the next number is, right? You're going to take the length of the page, right? And you're going to subtract the margin space, right? That's why I put the letter sizes up here as well, right? So, for example, the horizontal one, right? You're going to take this first part, 8.5 inches, right? From left to right, right? It's 8.5 inches. You could tell by the ruler that I inserted right here. It should be like at the 8.5 mark, right? So this is where it is, right? So if I want to add a margin space from the edge of this side of the page to have a guide at the 0.75, like go in a little bit, right? So from the edge here, go in 0.75 inches, right? So we want it somewhere around here. What number would we use to add that guide, right? To add a guide over here, that would give us that 0.75 inch margin space that we would put over here as well, right? So the easiest way to do this is taking the length of the page, which is 8.5, right? You're going to take this number and you're going to subtract the margin space, right? So make sure you line up where the decimal is, right? You're going to take 8.5 minus 0.75, right? And why do we subtract, right? If I want to add a guide at the 8.5 space, it would land it right here at the edge of the page, right? But I wanted to give me that margin space, right? I wanted to have a precise measurement, just like I have it over here, like how I would have it over here, right? If I had a guide right here at the 0.75 mark, it would be somewhere around here, right? I want to create the same space that I've created here over here, right? So you're just going to subtract, right? You're subtracting because you're going inside, right? You're going on the ruler, if you pay attention here, you're going on the inside, right? So if you add it, for example, if you take 8.75 plus 0.75, it's going to land the guide somewhere over here because you're increasing, right? You're going to the right. But we want to go to the left, so we're going to subtract, right? So 8.5 minus 0.75, it's going to give you a number, and you're going to add it right here, right? You're going to go to the text box, right, in your Kami. You're going to click, and you're going to add the number right here. Whatever number you came up with, right, doing the math correctly, 8.5 minus the margin space, which is 0.75, you're going to get a number and you're going to put it in here, a decimal number, right? And it's going to give you a number and you're going to be able to insert a guide right here, right? And it's going to give you the perfect 0.75 inch margin space at the left and at the right, right? For the vertical, you're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to start off at 0, right? over here you can see on the ruler, we start off at 0, and we're going to create a 0.75 inch margin space, right? So you're going to put in 0.75 for the vertical one, right? And then you're going to do the longer side of the page, right? So 11 inches minus the margin, and you're going to put the number in here, right? At this one, okay? And that's all you have to do, right? You just have to figure out what the exact measurement is to add your guide in the exact place, right? So if you add a guide at 11, right, it would be right here at the edge, right? You would have to subtract in order for it to go a little bit in, right? And it'll land it right at the exact space that you need it, right? So 11 minus the margin space, which is 0.75, you're going to add it right here, right? The vertical one is the same thing, right? This one and this one, okay? So because we're only adding to zeros for the first one. The first ones are always the easy ones because you always add by 0. The second ones are a little bit difficult because you have to find out what the measurement of the letter is, right? To sort of just subtract that space, okay? So now we're done with the first one, the second one, right? This is also a letter size page, except we've just switched around the measurements, right? So instead of it starting with 8.5, it starts with 11, right? And then it's the 8.5. Okay, so it just switches it around. So now this is the horizontal one and this is the vertical one, right? For this one, we're using the margin space of 0.5 inches, right? So the first one is always easy, right? Since we're starting off at 0, right? It's always easy to just create that first one because you're just using the margin space, period, right? So the first one is 0.5 inches, right? So we added the number 0.5 right there, okay? So we're gonna, for the second one, right? You're gonna use the 0.5 inch margin page all around your page. So that's the first thing to do. This requires 4 numbers, just like we did for the first one. So let's start off with doing that, right? We're gonna create a margin space around our page. That's the first thing we're gonna do. We're gonna add our 2 numbers for the horizontal and the 2 numbers for the vertical, right? So 0.5, it will land somewhere right here, right? We're going to take the other side of the page, right, which is 11, right? As you guys can see, it's right here on the ruler, 11. So if we add a guide right at the 11, it would be right here on the edge, right, on the right side of the page, okay? But we're going to create a 0.5 inch margin space, right? So we have to subtract that number, right? So you're going to take 11 minus 0.5, right? And then you're going to insert that number right here, 11 minus 0.5. Okay, put that number in there, and that number should give us a guide right on the inside of the page. It should be somewhere right here, right? So it's definitely less than 11, right? Because we're going to the left. Okay, you're gonna insert that number right there, and we're gonna do the same thing for the vertical one, right? So vertical one, we're gonna create that 0.5 inch space, right? So you're gonna add 0.5, and then you're gonna do the same thing for the vertical one. We're gonna take the number 8.5. Right, that's the vertical, 8.5. As you can see here on the ruler, it's the edge of the page is right at the 8.5 mark, right? So if we add a guide there, right, it would be right at the edge. But we need to have a 0.5 margin, right? So 8.5 minus 0.5, right? Minus because we need to go on the inside, right? And it would land our guide somewhere right here, right? So 8.5 minus the margin space, 8.5. You're going to insert your number right here, right, for the second one, okay? So for now, since we've created our margin, we have the first 4 numbers, right? These ones should be complete, okay? The next thing is we're going to create a divider, right? So we need to figure out what the halfway mark is for the page long ways, right? So we need one number for that. So from 0 to 11, right? We need to figure out what the halfway mark is, right? Somewhere right here in the middle, right? So how do we figure that out, right? We're going to take the length of the page, which is 11, and we're going to divide by 2, right? If we divide by 2, that should give us what half of 11 is, right? And that number, you're going to insert it right here, 11 divided by 2, right? And it should give you a guide somewhere right here in the middle, right? Somewhere right here at the middle of the page. Okay. Okay. Now that we've figured out what the middle of the page is, we have to figure out how to add a margin space for that middle guide, right? So that middle guide, you're going to have your number right here, right? So we are going to use that number. That number is important to get the last two numbers, right? So once you've divided 11 by 2, right, you're going to get a number, this middle one. And that middle one you're going to use to add the margin space, to add and subtract the margin space, right? So this number you have right here in the middle, you're going to add 0.5, the margin space, to it, and you're going to add the number right here, right? And you're going to go back to that middle guide, right? And you're going to subtract the margin space, and you're going to insert the number right here, right? Make sure that there are no repeated numbers, right? There should never be repeated numbers on the guides, okay? They should be different. You're going to take that middle number, you're going to add the margin space, which is 0.5, add it right here, add that new number right here. And you're going to go back into the, you're going to take that same middle guide, and you're going to subtract the margin space, and you're going to put that number right here, okay? And that's all. That's all we have to do. You have to do the math correctly, submit it, and I will tell you if you did it incorrectly. You guys can resubmit it if you did it incorrectly, right? Just let me know if you have any questions, and that's all.